Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Now, would you mind if I put the microphone down and speak to you? Can you hear me in the back okay? No? No. Okay. Good evening again. Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Jean, for having me here tonight. It's a privilege to be here with such a beautiful people, such a beautiful crowd. Now, just by show of hands, please, who has heard me speak before? Excellent, thank you. My parents taught me well. My parents taught me how to grow own food, vegetables and fruits. As Andrew mentioned, I come from this little big country in the heart of Europe, Slovakia, and I grew up literally in the forest. That's why what my parents were unable to grow in their gardens, and believe me or not, they still do, year in and year out. They've been growing the majority of their foods as long as I can remember. What they couldn't grow, they picked, and I picked as well in the forest around. What they couldn't grow, they shared or they swapped with the friends and the family. They taught me a lot how to appreciate gifts of nature, gifts of Mother Nature. Now this is the place where I was born and grew up. My parents still live in this house, and it's always a pleasure going there, spending 3-4 weeks, then coming back to beautiful Australia. These are my parents, and they've done really well. They retired my mom in late 50s, my father in his early 60s. And there has always been issues, health issues, which I'll tell you about a bit later. This actually is us kids, my brother and my sister. We used to help a lot, even in the garden, also feeding wildlife. My father used to be a forest manager, so he used to run around and take care of the trees and the management, and he goes for a hunt. He still enjoys that. That's why, well, now and then, yes. When I was growing up, I used to eat a lot of meat. There was always game in the freezer. Homemade sausages. Who can resist that? Now, this was all fine until 4 years ago, when my perception of the world changed. And I'll get back to it later. Now, to see if we are all on the same page, and if you are aware and awake, let's do a little exercise. Please think of a number between 1 and 10. Do you all have one? Yeah. Now multiply that number by, let's say, 9. Now you have a 2-digit number, is it correct? Yeah. Now add those 2 digits together and subtract 5. Are you with me? Now you have 1-digit number. That 1-digit number corresponds to a letter in alphabet. 1 for A, 2 for B, and so on. Do you have that letter? Now go to that letter in alphabet and think of a country beginning with that letter. First one that pops into your mind. Excellent. Now go to the second letter of that word, of that country, and think of an animal beginning with that letter. Do you have it? Excellent. Now, let's see if we are on the same page. Is this what you've been thinking about? By show of hands, yes?
It could have been
Thank you. Thank you. Now I think we are on the same page. Now, let me tell you why I'm here tonight. When I was 17, I noticed one thing when we got together as a family, and I come from a large family, especially from my mother's side. And at those visits, because we only lived 50 to 100 kilometers from each other, we used to meet like once or twice a month. And I noticed one common thing that kept happening at every gathering. There was a competition who has more pains and aches. And I was witnessing that pain and suffering for quite some years, until I noticed that one after the other, I lost my grandparents, my aunties, my uncles, due to obesity, cancer, heart attacks, strokes. And other changes, other challenges. Now, in those years, I've put my health on the top of the list of my priorities, and I started researching and learning how to keep healthy in a natural way, possibly away from medical industry, which is currently in crisis. Would you agree? That's why I'm here tonight, and this evening is my way of giving back, as well as the group that I'll tell you about later. We are obsessed by fire. Have you noticed? In these days, my kitchen rules, your kitchen rules, iron chef, wooden chef, and so on. And this is just from audio speakers, it's not real fire. Crackling, yes, sorry.
Rados, you have to have one.
Fire is a good thing to keep us warm in winter, but heat kills. Would you agree? And now we are obsessed because we cook everything, and I remember one lady mentioned cooking classes, and I'm going to talk about later at the night about uncooking classes. Have you heard of those? Your raw health and well-being. I believe we all come to this world uncooked, raw. And there is one common denominator in this. Heat. Heat deteriorates live things. How many of you have experienced a power of little burn? You touch the stove? Anyone? Yeah. And how long does it take to heal? Weeks. Quite a while. Weeks? A month? Now, yes. I believe if you remember, I'm sure you remember, you've left your car in the heat of the day and you came back. Does anyone drive black car? And you touch by coincidence the roof. Does it hurt when you leave your finger there for more than 2 seconds? This what applies to food as well. And if you touch surface over 42 degrees, it's quite unpleasant. And foods, our live foods are not live anymore if we are exposed them to over 42 degrees Celsius for longer periods of time. That's what we are going to talk about tonight. Our bodies can be compared to equilateral triangle. Now, that is physical side, mental side, and spiritual side. If one of those shrinks or one of those extends or contracts, we become unbalanced. Our lives become unbalanced, and it's called Trinity balance. What we are going to talk tonight is physical side, which is number 3. And it's just one piece of the puzzle, raw foods. Now, we experience all sorts of problems and challenges these days. Is disease a burden? Now, it is a burden to us, but not just to us, to our loved ones, to our family members who love us, but they wouldn't admit it. And here it is a story of my family. There is my auntie and my uncle Tony. This is quite a recent one. He didn't, well, there was a lack of education where I come from. And people wouldn't admit that we are what we eat. He's had problems, multiple bypasses, heart pacemaker, and later on, because he used to eat a lot of meat, he developed colon cancer. Now that developed, and for 4 months, at the later stages, his loving wife, Gabriela, was at his bed in hospital for 4 months consecutive, every day in and out. And she wouldn't admit it because she loved him unconditionally until he passed away in December last year. And after that I spoke to her and she says, I got my life back. Learn from the mistakes of others. You can never live long enough to make them all yourself. Short video for you. Short video about raw foods.
There was a Swiss doctor by the name of Paul Kuchkoff, who he was the first to show in the 1930s that if you ate a diet that was more than 51% cooked food, that your body would react to the food as if it was being invaded by a foreign organism. Dr. Kuchkov was the first to demonstrate that if 51% of your meals were raw, that you would have no leukocytosis, or you would actually have no white blood cell reaction. So your immune system would not be activated with a false alarm. Because we're dealing with so many immune system issues today, we have to make sure that at least 51% of every meal that we have is raw, so that we don't overburden that already burdened immune system.
Now, to clarify things, I don't eat raw foods only. I still eat cooked foods like rice, potatoes. Where I come from, there used to be a lot of potatoes. And it's about implementing more raw foods, and after a while you realize that you don't need so many cooked foods. You don't need so many addictive foods like chocolate and things that don't make us feel well. It's about implementing more. Benefits of raw foods. This is the main problem, or the main challenge with foods. As long as our enzymes are intact in our foods, they are still alive, and that's what makes raw foods raw foods. Enzymes are zeroed if foods are exposed to more than 42 degrees Celsius. High absorption and assimilation. This is another one. When we eat cooked foods, literally those foods are, our bodies sometimes don't recognize them. The next one, short preparing times. Who loves spending time in the kitchen? Who loves that? The main one for me is little or no dishes. I don't like doing dishes.
This could be the first generation of children in the United States that lives less than its parents.
I got 2 pills I take for my diabetes, then I got 1 for cholesterol, high blood pressure, and then I take Byetta, which is an injectable.
I'm getting really shaky and I'm sick and I'm fatigued, and that's when they diagnosed me with hypertension and diabetes.
Obesity, diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure cost this country more than $120 billion each year.
People are saying, you're crazy, you're a cancer patient, you should be resting. Doctors told me this. When I had the second heart attack, the doctor said I should prepare for death.
Heart disease is an absolutely toothless paper tiger that need never ever exist.
People who were raised in Japan, the Philippines, Korea, China never had heart disease, prostate cancer, colon cancer, breast cancer, rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis.
This is the atlas of cancer mortality in China.
Virtually the Western diet was non-existent. They had no animal products, they had no dairy, no meat.
We learned that we could turn on and turn off cancer growth just by adjusting the level of intake of that protein.
I knew at that point what caused most diseases.
Our national authorities are simply excluding this concept in order to protect the status quo.
With the Western diet, there are going to be 500,000 people in this country this year who will have to have the front half of their body divided, their heart exposed. Some people would call that extreme.
I know of nothing else in medicine that can come close to what a plant-based diet can do.
If you go through life thinking that what happens to you from a health perspective is based on your genes, you're a helpless victim.
I reversed the diabetes. The diabetes is not coming back.
I just can't understand what it's done to change my life.
Diet is so much more important than anybody ever thought.
To me, the answer is so simple, it's criminal. It's just people starting to take responsibility for their health and starting to eat more plant-based foods. It's that simple.
Now we are only across the ocean and we are catching up fast. This is not happening only in America. I'm sure you are aware of it. What, you might ask me, what do you eat then? All I eat is fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds in large quantities. In the morning especially a lot of fruits, because that's when our bodies eliminate. And it's great to leave that to fruits, which are so easy to digest and they just flush us on the inside. I mentioned cooked foods. I'm learning to sprout legumes, beans, because when something is growing, it's full of life, is it? So that's what we should aim for, living live foods. Dried fruits, coconuts, whatever you can lay your hands on. preferably organic. Now, I would suggest choose raw, whole plant-based live foods. Why live foods? They are alive, that's what we strive for. Then they are organic, preferably organic. And they are vegetarian. You love that song, don't you? And they are ecological. They are safe to us, to planet, and to everyone around. Food supplements. I'm going to gently mention food supplements here because if you look for word supplement from Latin means incomplete, isolated, separated, and taken away from. 99% of food supplements we can't digest them, and sewage plants, sewage treatment plants in major cities are full of undigested food supplements that are treated as toxic waste. Now, I mentioned 99% of food supplements. There is 1% of great products, and one of those products, or 1% of the companies, one of them is also new ways. And I understand that if you are interested, talk to the person who invited you here tonight about those, about quality products that have a high level of absorption and elimination. Decision is yours. What are we here for? Would you rather take these or take those? These products are gifts of nature, and less we interfere with them, better they get. They're colorful, they're tasteful, and they are good for us. It's supposed to be a secret, but I'll tell you anyway. We doctors do nothing, we only help and encourage the doctor within, said Albert Schweitzer, medical doctor. Add years to your life and life to your years with raw foods. That's what I encourage you to do. Choose whole foods and live in plant-based foods. Whole foods are as they are here in this dish. They are as they are. You can carry them with you, and you know when they are rotten, they are gone. Raw foods and their proven results. It's amazing what we can do with raw foods and plant-based diet. And the list is endless. Let's mention a few. Weight loss, weight gain, reverse diabetes in 30 days or less. There's so many stories coming and circulating around the world. People reverse diabetes in 2 weeks. Heal yourself of cancer. Reverse arthritis. Reverse allergies. Reverse aging. Now let me mention, with your permission, I'd like to share with you a few tips that helped me to enjoy great health for the last 18 years. And, excuse me, a couple of years ago I decided to share this with people because I thought, and I realized it was time for me to share what works. Realistic expectations and takeaways from this for you. Energy and vitality. Clear and positive thinking, improved relationships, improved communication. Now, it's not always what we have to start doing, it's mostly what we have to stop doing, because we create and maintain our own diseases. Antibiotics, anti-life. We want to be more alive, don't we? Why wouldn't we use antibiotics? Chlorine and fluoride, you know this, we live in Brisbane. Microwave. Microwave literally changes the structure of the foods. They are no longer alive when you take the plate out of microwave. And it's not coincidence that in Russia, microwaves were banned for years, and only until recently they got through to the market. Sunscreens and blocks. Avoid them as much as you can. There was an official article that was published in the Gold Coast newspaper 2 years ago. It's not the sun that causes skin cancer, it's the sunblocks that cause skin cancer. Margarine, only 2 molecules different from plastic. You are better off using real cow's butter if you are not vegan. Avoid TV in case you are looking for more time. There is so much time when you switch off the TV. Toxic relationships. Ladies and gentlemen, you would be surprised how many people live in abusive relationships. And those cause more harm than good and more health problems. Get out of toxic relationship. Toxic cosmetics. Yes, there are cosmetics that are very toxic and cosmetics that are highly effective. And I suggest you talk to the people who invited you here tonight to know more about those safe cosmetics. And if you remember one thing from tonight, one and only thing, then this is it. If you cannot eat it, do not put it on your skin. Disease represents an invitation to change. Are you willing to change? Because it all starts within us. We change ourselves for one of these two reasons. The first one is desperation, and the other one is inspiration. And I believe every single one of you is here tonight because of that inspiration. Health revelation for you. Frequency and repetition equals trust. Once you do something often enough, a ratio appears, and you begin trusting yourself and believing in yourself and others. Avoid apathy and neglect. And then if you do these steps, these simple proven steps, health and well-being becomes the only logical choice. Health comes from a happy heart. Are you happy? Are you happy with what you are doing, with what you do for living, for your loved ones, for your family? As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Now, before I finish, I have about 8 minutes here for the night. Let's see what we've heard here for so far till this moment, because we all have different fantasies, and sometimes we don't know how to make them realities. It only takes a bit of effort, energy, and a belief that we can. Let's see what happens with those fantasies that we all have. Are you willing to take responsibility for your own health into your own hands? I believe now is the time for you to be here for longer, for your children, for your grandchildren, for people who care about you. Now, let me mention vegetarianism and veganism. 4 years ago, you showed that picture of a deer in the beginning. My father still loves hunting. 4 years ago, I realized one thing after reading a book called Fit for Life. Has anyone heard of this book? I realized, it took me 3 decades to realize that I don't need to eat my friends. I love animals, I love wildlife. And I realized that animals are able to express emotions. I'm sure you know that, you have your pets. And that moment changed my life, and I became vegetarian, as well as my partner, Hannah. Why become a vegetarian? Health reasons. I understood that there is a lot of cancer problems linked to animal products. And another thing I realized, I don't need to be involved in killing to be healthy. I was more nervous and aggressive. 4 or 5 years ago, I would get upset for any little reason. What I noticed after becoming vegetarian 4 years ago, I found peace within myself, and then that's why my world changed. Increased compassion towards people around, because I'm sure you know that everybody's doing his best with the resources he has or she has available at that time. We are all here for a purpose, and compassion is needed every day, more and more. Safe and beneficial for the planet. Greenhouse gases that we talk so much about are mainly caused by grazing animals and livestock. If we reduce that, there would be no food shortages in the world, and everybody would have something to eat, even in Africa. A short video for you that tells us about our friends, our animals.
And you have to see this video to believe it. What first looks like a lion about to attack is actually an African lion bonding with its rescuer with a hug and a kiss. This heartwarming footage comes to us from an animal sanctuary in Colombia. It seems the king of the jungle must have a soft side after all. Yeah, because when you first see that right there, you don't know what's going on. Right. She actually rescued him 6 years ago. He was found malnourished, so they're together every single day, and the love has formed, hasn't it?
I can't even get my dog to sit in my lap.
I know, but I'm sure you can.
We'll talk.
Now, a few differences between vegetarianism and veganism, I'm sure you know. Just to recap, vegetarians, we don't eat meat. We don't eat anything that has a face. We don't eat dead bodies. Vegans, they don't eat any animal products, not even milk and other dairies, cheeses, eggs, not even honey, which is sad. I still like honey, do you? Now they don't even wear leather shoes for protection. And I ride motorbikes, and I had a conversation with one lady. She's strict vegan, and I say, look, I understand, I'm not vegan yet, I'm aiming for that, but still my skin is not as tough as a cow's skin when I ride my motorbike. She didn't understand.
Especially when you hit cars, right?
They hit me. The truth will set you free. I encourage you to seek the truth, whatever works for you. There is internet, this beautiful device that makes us closer and gets us closer together with all the information available. Seek the truth for yourself. Now, just to wrap it up, Andrew mentioned group, the Brisbane Raw Food and Healthy Living Group was established in December 2008 in Brisbane by a lady whose little baby boy developed multiple allergies. She was looking for ways how to solve this problem because she was helpless. She couldn't help. She couldn't get help of any specialist, any doctor in hospitals, anywhere else. She found raw foods and their benefits, established a group, and later on she committed to her upbringing of her son. So she stepped away. I've been with the group since the beginning, and then was the time when she asked me to take over, so I did. And we started attracting interesting guest speakers, not just from Australia, but from overseas, from Canada, from the United States. The group grew to 500 members, is in a great shape and growing, and interest is rising. Let me mention our upcoming event for those of you who are interested. We meet in Chermside on the north side of Brisbane, and the next upcoming event is on Saturday 14th of May between 2 and 5:30 p.m. The link is there as well for more details. Now, in closing, I have 2 minutes with you, and let me share with you the work, that project that became a reality in October 2009. I come from a former communist country with a lot of limitations and limiting beliefs. Back then, when I grew up, the money was in the hands of the government. There was no chance for wealth accumulation. People were equally living, not allowed to travel. I started to search for answers to accumulate, to create wealth for people who need it, for me, for people around me, for my family. And I come across this work in October 2009 and published a book called Creating Customers for Life that was published in English as well as in Slovakian. And in that book you can find out how to attract customers, how to turn their potential, how to determine how much you can afford to spend to get a new customer, to retain it. Set you and your business apart from any and all competition and much more. Now, for those of you who are interested in learning another language, I suggest Slovakian version. Those books are or will be available. We brought a few copies with us. And now just let me mention one word from this book. Joe Bauer, best-selling author of How to Persuade People Who Don't Want to Be Persuaded, Get What You Want Every Time, said, "Don't start running your own business until you've read this book at least once." Now, the price of this book is $24.95. And for those of you who are willing to take action tonight, here, tonight, and tonight only, the price is $20. I'd like to thank you for your attention and have a great night.